Here we go. Welcome everybody. This is PnP. What?
Hard to feel intelligence. It's not artificial. It's hard to feel intelligence.
No. Computers are smart now. Now, welcome to the PnP Weekly. We're not going to cut that away. PnP Weekly episode 198. We were laughing for the transcripts because it doesn't understand Finglish clearly. So it's one of those learnings, by the way, that you need to hide that to panel, because otherwise you start paying attention too much on what are you saying?
I'm not saying that. I haven't said that. No.
Waldek, what am I actually saying? Is there something wrong?
I don't know what I'm saying.
Anyway, it is 17th of February, and we're recording this Friday, typically on Monday, and then going out on Tuesday. But there's some time off and all of that. So, like in the previous time, actually. So, similar kind of thing. So, recording a bit early. We recorded the interview already earlier today, and that was with who? Mustafa Toroman. Yes.
I was like, what? You're asking me stuff. Stop asking me stuff. What?
I can barely remember what I did 1 hour ago. Come on. Now, yes, Mustafa is a Azure architect. It's probably the easiest way to kind of explain the technical Azure architect, and actually a really interesting discussion. And he is also in the content and the coordination team creating the European Collaboration Summit. That's the conference, right? That is.
Yes, European Collaboration Summit.
Yes.
Summit EU.
Which happens in May 2023. So, and a lot of cool actually conferences in the pipeline this spring, which is great, and hopefully we get a lot of people attending, because it's cool to see actually human beings and have a discussions. Now, in the PnP Weekly, I was talking about the latest on Microsoft 365. We, of course, together with all of the other related technologies, Power Platform, Azure, all of that stuff, and then we go through, have an interview and go through the articles. But I guess that's for the intro. My name is Vesa, you're Waldek.
Yes.
So. Yes, it's not like we haven't done this before, but it's hard. But let's jump on the interview with Mustafa. That's true. Let's jump into the interview with Mustafa and come back for the articles. Good. Excellent. So welcome, Mustafa, joining on the PnP Weekly, episode 198. It's good to have you in the call as well. Let's start with the basics. Who are you and what are you doing for a living?
Yeah, first of all, hello and thank you for having me. So, my name is Mustafa Toroman. I come from Bosnia and Herzegovina. I'm a cloud solution architect and Azure MVP.
And then Azure MVP, what do you do then for a living? What does the cloud solution architects? So what does that mean in practice?
Now, I wear very different hats throughout my career, starting from database admin to sysadmin to engineering to architect stuff, and then basically right now I'm helping customers envision their roadmap. How should they approach the cloud? What are the benefits there? How to leverage all the benefits and get the best out of their cloud journey, and things like that. Obviously, most of my work today is around cloud adoption framework and things like that, that help large organizations adopt cloud in a way that can scale and change over time.
Yeah, and is that with where are your customers based on? Is that which area of the world?
Yeah, previously I've worked with a US company. And most of my customers were US enterprises. Recently, recently, it's been over a year now, I joined M Cloud Denmark, Devoteam M Cloud Denmark. And currently I'm working with primarily customers from Denmark. And yeah, there are a couple of more inside the European Union and that sort of thing. So those are my customers currently.
Yeah, that's actually, I have to immediately ask, I can see Waldek has chilling questions on his mind already. What's the differences between US and Europe? Because you work with both regions, and there are certain regional differences, and from a customer perspective, is there a visible things for your side?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's a huge mentality difference. working with US customers, everything is a priority 100. Everything needs to be dealt right now. Everything will burn if we don't do something this very second. And working with the European customers, it's much more relaxed. No one, like, everyone is reasonable. Deadlines are set in a way that it can actually be reached rather than burning out by the end of the project. So that's a huge difference in approach and how things work. And also, like, in US with US customers, it's always 24/7. Like, if there's something coming up, immediately everyone needs to be on board. Everyone is jumping on calls, discussing things. What are we doing right now? And with
that sounds somehow familiar. Sorry.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. I imagine you see that. And with the European customers, it's usually like no one makes a fuss if you don't immediately respond outside the business hours. It's much more again, relaxed.
Yeah. Huh. Do you have any guesses? Why would that be? Where is this coming from? Is it just a regional cultural differences, or is it?
It's a mentality between the US and the rest of the world, I guess.
Well, of course, but we don't. Yeah, we of course there's different regional things in APAC and all of that.
Yeah, even like definitely. Obviously inside Europe. You would see different countries, different regions have different approach to things and take everything. Like most of my customers are coming from Denmark, which is kind of like Scandinavian part, and there everything is much more relaxed, much more open to new discussions, to new things. When in Germany, for example, everything is much more strict. Like, we have these rules, we need to abide. And we cannot go outside this rule. And if we need to change the rule, it's going to take 6 months to discuss on how we are going to do that, and etc. So there are obviously differences. It's not unique that US is different from everyone else. Every country, every region has its own quirks and differences.
Yeah, the decision-based, let's say, driving things. I remember when I was still a consultant, it's a classic storyline of hey, we need to do this, and I'm basically saying, yeah, it has been decided, so we need to do that, and nobody ever questions who decided. And it's like, it's just as a consultant, if you needed to get something done in certain companies, you just needed to say, it has been decided that we'll do this. And then if somebody eventually started asking on, okay, who decided? Well, I did. But so people don't. That happens still in enterprises so often, and it's not just in US or in Europe. It's every now and then it's actually good practice to be like, okay, wait a minute, why are we exactly doing this? So Microsoft said, okay, who from Microsoft said, and what? Well, Microsoft said, no, it's big company. So quite often you hear that from customers as well, that yeah, Microsoft told us to do this.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Told you to do that.
Yeah, I've seen that. That's very good question. When someone says Microsoft said that, so that's like, who exactly? It can be a very valid point, but it doesn't have to be.
Yes. Hey, I wanted to ask, you mentioned that you help customers do more with our cloud on Azure, right? And Azure is a huge place. How do you stay in touch with all of it? Like, how do you rationalize, or how do you learn what's out there, and when to use which over what? What is your recipe to stay on top of everything that's going on Azure?
Yeah,
everything.
That's a very valid question. There are services in Azure that I never touched. Like, being an Azure MVP, there are services in Azure I never touch. But I'm very fortunate that I started very early when it wasn't so difficult to learn. I was fortunate enough to try out Azure before it was publicly available. So
so you were the one who got to work with Silverlight Portal.
Yeah. But that wasn't only Silverlight Portal was there for a very long time after it was publicly available.
Oh,
so it was a few years in use for a production environment. So that like changed the new portal, and everything we have now came at a much later point. Yeah. But at that time,
half of the people listening are like Silverlights.
What's Silverlight? Yeah.
Have a look on Wikipedia. Anyway,
that's something very unfortunate that should never happen. But okay.
Exactly.
Anyway, I started very early, and there was just a bunch of services. It was like 5-6 services out there. You couldn't do much at that point. It was more related to infrastructure as a service, only a couple of platform as a service options that were available. And it was relatively easy to learn. Like you could master everything in there in week or two top. Obviously, things very much changed over time. And that's one of the things I always tell people discussing the cloud, be ready for constant learning. It's changing all the time. Like every product group inside the Microsoft, every service there's a 3-week sprint. Every 3 weeks, something changes. It might might not be that huge, right? It might be something very small, but it's constantly changing, and it will change in a way that is affecting your workload, your application, your architecture. So you need to stay on top of it. So as I said, I started early, I mastered what was in there, and for me, it's relatively easy to keep track of the new stuff because it's just an upgrade. Where it's very difficult for someone who just comes into the field and says, okay, I'm going to start learning Azure now. It's huge.
I'm going to learn Azure.
Yeah,
that's good.
So it's good to focus on things that are important to you. Like, what is your primary focus? If you're a developer, what is interesting to you in Azure right now? Because, as I said, it's huge. We can move from infrastructure to platform as a service to a million different options out there that are available from different fields, from data, applications, compute, machine learning, artificial intelligence, cognitive services. There are a million different stuff. So try to focus on what is interesting to you, what is related to your work, what do you want to work with, and try to focus on those services, because keeping track of everything is simply impossible today.
Yeah.
I don't really know what to ask, right? And that makes me curious, right? You being kind of sysadmin or architect at heart, how do you see, the balance with devs, where in the past, devs would write some code, press F5, it works on the local IIS, ship it. How do you see them catching up with building things in the cloud and microservices, distributed systems, things like trust, security, and tokens and keys, dealing with all of that, being a dev? So how do you balance with them, and what kind of weird things do you see them do? And there's like, no, like we're not doing that in the cloud nowadays.
Yeah, so cloud adoption framework. So it's very important to have a good strategic and planned way of going to the cloud from the organizational level. If organization as a whole plans properly, today, especially important for the development cycles, we have this concept of the landing zones, where application team is going to get their own piece of Azure, and then they can do whatever they want inside that piece. However, looking at the cloud adoption framework from the cloud platform perspective, organization is going to enforce certain rules. What can you or cannot do inside that your own space that you have complete control of? There are still rules that you need to abide by. So basically, you would say, okay, I've seen, for example, for EU companies, they are deciding, okay, our data needs to stay inside the EU, so only data centers inside the EU. So you're going to have a certain policy on how that's going to set it up. And then you are probably going to enforce that all data needs to be encrypted in transit, in REST, etc., and all sort of different company compliance rules and whatever company needs to achieve. You're going to have that on top as a part of the cloud platform. Someone from admin part is going to enforce all those rules. This is going to be available. And then you get your piece of Azure that you can play with and deploy services and whatever you want. And then from developer perspective, it's much easier compared to what was done in the past. Because, as you said, yeah, we're going to build some code. We're going to push it to IIS, and that's it. But how do we get that IIS? You would need to request a virtual machine. Then someone needed to configure that virtual machine, and then provide you access to that virtual machine so you can actually finally deploy code. And then if the code is deployed, are there network rules associated with it? Can we actually access it?
Policies,
firewall, etc.
Yeah, all of that jazz.
Windows
Nowadays,
updates, all of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Nowadays, you get your landing zone, you get your piece of Azure, your own personal piece of Azure. You can deploy there whatever you want. So you want your web application? Yeah, just deploy web app, and it's up. It's there. You are ready to use it. Just push your code there, and it's up and running. There's no queues waiting for a ticket to be resolved. Everything is much faster. So that's very cool part of that cloud. Second part is also like resources. Like we started building applications. Someone said, okay, we need this kind of infrastructure, these VMs with this much memory, this much CPUs, etc. Then we have a problem because all of a sudden we have more users than we anticipated. Workloads are getting higher and higher and higher. Now to change the size of that VM becomes a problem because there's no capacity in the local data center. So you need to wait for hardware.
MediaMarkt to buy a disk.
Yep.
And basically in Azure, you don't have any problems with that anymore. There's a huge capacity available in the data centers. Whatever you need, you just click, create it. Click is not ideal way of doing it. I would prefer that people use infrastructure as a code, but from someone who is just entering the cloud, it might seem easier to use a GUI interface.
I have to say that it's if you think about, well, I obviously worked for a while in Microsoft and started with a Windows Azure and all of that many moons ago, before it was Microsoft Azure. But even the VM upgrades, it's a magical thing how easy it is, because I need to do some testing every now and then in a VM, which is a clean, and then I do it in Azure, and then it's like, well, now it's too slow. Shut it down, upgrade, upscale, start, and you're like, how does it do that? So it's just magical that you don't. When we started with Azure, that wasn't the case. It wasn't that you basically were stuck in the whatever VM sizing what you actually got, or it wasn't as flexible. Now it's like just upscale.
Sea turtles, mate.
Move it to SSD disk and start.
Sea turtles.
How? Yeah, it's the sea turtles. Yes, exactly. It's from a computer science perspective, it's just incredible what you can actually do there, and the speed of that scalability. It's just amazing. It's just how. Okay. Anyway, that's out of our understanding, or at least out of my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting twist, right? So you see, like, we have all the power, flexible, like we can do things. What are some of the things you see going wrong, despite all of the abilities and features that we have? Like, where people take a misstep that they could have avoided if only they thought about X?
The most common mistake I've seen that there is no governance inside the organizational tenant. This self-provisioning, you do it yourself approach is amazing and it's excellent, but you still need a visibility inside into what's inside, what's running on your Azure. Well, you have all those services, but why are they there in the first place? Right. Yeah, because the approach is a little bit different to on-prem infrastructure. For on-prem, you would purchase hardware, set it up, and it was there. And then even if you're not using it, it's already there. You purchased it. It was a plan for whatever reason. So it will be used eventually, right? And it's an investment.
So many memories. Yeah, that's like that's wow. And we needed to do the definitions and purchase orders for specific hardware and the memory consumption and CPUs, and you needed to do the plan. Oh my God, that was horrible. Exactly.
And wow. The self-provisioning in the cloud, that is so cool. Just choose what you need right now and do it. And even if you underestimated or overestimated your workloads, you can scale it up and down as you want. And the thing is that in cloud, you're paying as much as you're using, right? So if you upscale it indefinitely, it will cost you indefinitely. It will cost you a lot of money, and you need to be careful. So you need to know what is in there. Like, why are you paying for these services? because I've seen many times where there's no insight in what's in the company's cloud, then basically it becomes a jungle. It's complete chaos because people create POCs that never see the light of the day, and
like
it just
every
stays
night
there.
there's a big pipe like pulling data, and you're like, but why? Why is it there?
No one knows exactly. Like this, someone decided, right?
Yes, exactly.
Someone decided. You need a way to have an insight, because I've seen with a lot of companies that once we establish the governance, when we actually go down and see, okay, what is this? Like, let's actually find out what is used and not used. We tend to save up to like 40 or 60% on the cost, which can be huge for a large organization, right?
Exactly.
So how do you go about it? Right? Because like in Azure, like you have a list of all the resource groups and resources, but where do you start? Like if you go, imagine you go to a customer, right, and they have no insight, they have no idea what they have, and they have a bunch of stuff. How do you go about doing inventory of all of that?
Tagging. You tag everything. So Azure have this ability to tag resources, and then for each of the workloads and everything that is deployed, once again, we're returning to cloud adoption framework governance part. You are ensuring that all resources need to have adequate tags, like who is the owner, department, cost center. There are a million different things.
Gotcha.
It depends on your strategy and the approach, but using tags, you can with certainty say who is using that and for what, and then it gives you a start, like, because even if you're not sure of something, you know who your first contact is, like who should know about this stuff, and is this actually used, or what kind of environment is this, and etc.
To be fair, these tags should come from your deployment pipelines. As soon as you create the resource, they're already stamped with these things, so that you don't need to manually get back to them and have a bunch of meetings and calling people like, hey, like I'm looking at this. What is this thing? What's in it?
Ideal approach would be that have it in the deployment pipelines to begin with.
Yep.
Try using infrastructure as a code. That approach is how we do things now, right? That's the DevOps way of doing things. So we want infrastructure as a code to be done. I will not get into it. I'm a huge fan of
but can you do a quick kind of a summary? What is infrastructure as a code? Why would people have a look at that?
So basically, infrastructure as a code gives you ability to deploy infrastructure, to have a definition of your infrastructure written as code, and then you can deploy it and redeploy it whenever you need. Reasons for that could be multiple, from different environments, from dev, test, production. You have consistency, so you are always deploying exactly the same environment. There's no drift, right? Because again, on-prem, when we have different environments, they was manually configured. And then when you do something in dev and deploy and it works in dev, there's this manual configuration that makes it work. And once you deploy it to production, it doesn't have that manual configuration anymore because someone forgot about it, and then everything falls apart, right? And this is why we want infrastructure as a code. Consistency. You always have exactly the same environment, and you know exactly what kind of configuration goes with that environment. It also allows you to recover very quickly if you do the things that way. So let's say that for whatever reason, West Europe data center is down, it's not available. In the blink of an eye,
which has never happened, just to be clear. So.
Yeah, it never. I'm just saying. Let's say that it happened.
A meteor, a huge rock from the sky falls directly on. Like it hit the whole planet. It hit directly in the spot.
There were hiccups now and then, but entire data center going out, it was not. So let's say that if that happens very quickly, you can just, because you have infrastructure as a code, you can redeploy to another region. You're up and running. Everything is fine. Let's say that your application is breached. Infrastructure that you have in production for a certain system, it's been breached, it's been compromised. You can just destroy everything, move it to a different location. You're done. It's no longer compromised.
And is the code, as we're saying code, am I writing then TypeScript or JavaScript, or what does that mean in practice?
What are the options to express infra
there are
as code?
there are so many different things. There are so many things.
I can do
first,
XML.
We don't
I can do
talk
XML.
about Word. We don't talk about a Word doc. Like that doesn't qualify as infrastructure as a code.
yeah. So we have couple of ways of doing. Like first one that came with Azure was ARM templates. So ARM templates were way of doing things, which was a little inconvenient to work with. Well, ARM templates is basically a huge JSON file. So if you have a very big infrastructure for your system, it can be thousands of lines of code in JSON. So it's kind of very difficult to work with. Fortunately, a couple of years ago, Microsoft decided to, okay, this is becoming a little bit complex. So they came up with a bicep, which is basically same approach, but in a different format, which is more visible and easier to work with. You have better options. Then,
but is it code if it's JSON?
That's
It is.
Are you a developer if you're doing only JavaScript?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's also option very popular in cloud is Terraform, which is kind of like cloud agnostic, so it works basically on any cloud.
Yep.
And then relatively Pulumi is I've seen it very popular, seen it becoming very popular with the developers because it gives you ability to write your infrastructure basically in most programming languages like TypeScript, C#. You can write your infrastructure in those with Pulumi. And those are obviously like we have different types, and then there's also things like CLI and PowerShell, which are not ideal, declarative and stuff. So yeah.
Cool.
Now, so that we're not running out of time, let's talk about also the other things what you're doing, because we've been working on something that's happening this spring. I'm partly a bit involved in that. But you're actually wearing a shirt of something what you've been involved for.
I'm in a shirt. Yeah, I'm in a shirt. That's correct. Yeah. So
can you talk about what is that thing in the spring and where everybody should be coming to Düsseldorf?
Yeah. So May 22nd to 24th, we have European Collaboration Summit. This is our 10th anniversary, so it's going to be huge for us. It's a peak of everything we've been doing for so many years, and growing in numbers, and hoping to achieve another record this year. Things are going according to plan, so we hope to see huge crowd in Düsseldorf. It's going.
What does the huge mean? Just to be clear on that.
So,
is huge
like,
20?
We always, yes, okay. So yeah, we always aim to achieve more. So numbers from the last collaboration summit before unfortunate events that happened in the past, we are around 2,000. So we are aiming to go over that number, and our next goal is to 2,500.
Yep.
Nice.
That's a good-sized crowd already, so which is really, really cool.
And where did you start? Like, what was your first event venue and kind of the size?
Yeah, so it obviously grew over. We replaced hundreds with thousands in the meantime, and the conference originally started in Zagreb, Croatia, where it was for several editions before moving to Germany. In Germany was the first time when we achieved 1,000 numbers. Basically, unfortunately, Croatia is a beautiful but small country, and not maybe so easy to come to. So connections were not ideal. So we kind of reached our limit there and couldn't go over a number of 500 to 600. That was the biggest we could achieve. So we made a decision to move the conference to Germany, in Frankfurt area, which is kind of like a major European hub for the air traffic. So everyone was easy. It was relatively easy to come to. And the first time we moved it there, first one was in Mainz. immediately we hit 1,500, I think. And it's been growing ever since. So we first German edition was in Mainz, second one was in Wiesbaden. This is the T-shirt from Wiesbaden, and the last one that we had in 2021 was in Düsseldorf.
Yeah.
And this year we are repeating that venue. We are going to be in the same place.
Now the situation looks much better. The 2021 we can a bit touch that cut quite significantly impacted on another surge of numbers going up and down and announcements happening just on the previous weeks. That
just a week before the conference.
It's just, and I remember that weekend when the conference started on Monday, when there was I had like a jillion messages coming in. Are you going? Are you going? Can we go? What's happening? So it was a really intense moment because there was some news announcements coming up on a new variant, and everybody was a bit scared. And so luckily the spring looks much better. So I think we're getting finally
Fingers
to normal.
crossed.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
So,
Fingers crossed.
that is true. Now, why would anybody go to ECS? Just not just the numbers, but what's there in the spring? It's the 10 years anniversary. What else is happening?
So I love the part that this is still we grew in numbers, but this remained a community conference. So the atmosphere of the conference is still what you get from usually smaller community events. Everyone is open. There's a lot of discussions. You can catch all the speakers in throughout the venue, outside their session, to have a talk with them, to discuss different things. Everything is much more relaxed than on huge commercial conferences. There's no schedule. Everyone just hangs out, talk about stuff, discuss different things. We have amazing speaker lineup. I think and you mentioned, Vesa, you are part of it. Well, you are part of the content team, so you are responsible, one of the people responsible for having that lineup this year, which I think is best one we had yet. We have a little over 100 speakers, 108, I think, this year. Out of these 108 speakers, we have 75 Microsoft MVPs, 25 people from Microsoft, 7 regional directors. And one thing that we are especially proud of, that we are trying to stay current and basically not to have just the same lineup over and over and over again. There's around 30% of new speakers that never presented at Collaboration Summit before.
That is so cool. That is really cool.
We are very proud of that.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge thing, because of course it's great to have new people and new opportunities for people who are coming onto the industry, and not have the old dinosaurs, right, Waldek, to take over the.
I don't know who you are talking about. Like, if you are talking about yourself, yes.
Who's older here? I don't know, actually. That's a good question.
You are the oldest, I guess.
Am I really?
My guess.
Yeah, I always used to be the youngest when I started my career.
Different room, buddy.
Yeah, the thing is, in IT, everything over 40 is a dinosaur. So,
hence, I am not one. Today I learned. There you go. I am not 40.
Really?
Yeah. Despite the looks.
Okay. It's fine. I'm 25. I will never grow past 26. Okay. At least mentally.
The age is a state of mind, not the body.
Exactly. That's for sure. True. Good. I guess we're running a bit out of time as well, but any last words? Mustafa, thank you for joining. Really cool discussion, and actually really cool to have a discussion and perspectives on the Azure side of the house as well, because of course with Microsoft 365, all of that is highly connected. So
yeah. Obviously, everything today, especially when you look at the Microsoft 365, which is a software as a service offering. So development obviously changed very much from what we had on-prem, and if you are doing any kind of development around Microsoft 365, then you're depending on Azure. different Azure services that are going to extend your Microsoft 365 environments.
Absolutely. Authentication, tokens, all of that stuff as a starting point, and then all of the other opportunities, Azure functions, and exactly.
Mind your calf.
Yes.
Exactly.
Cool. Anyway, well, let's do a quick recap. Anything interesting what's happening this week? Mustafa, what you're going to talk about?
That much. It's Friday.
Well, we're Friday recording this. So anything interesting happening next week related on anything what you can talk about? Just a kind of a weekly recap on things.
I don't think I'm having anything very important next week.
That's cool, actually. That's really good. A bit more relaxed.
That's very strange, to be honest. That's very strange, to be honest.
Yeah, business as usual. And Waldek, anything interesting on your side?
I'm looking at my calendar, so there's not. Well, I mean, there's a bunch of regular meetings. There's not much, but it's basically the time, the silence before the storm, because on March 1 we're going to start a 2-week hackathon around Microsoft Graph and .NET. So there'll be a huge part of it's all of the work that we've done over the past and the coming weeks. You'll see the fruition of that. So we will have a great lineup of speakers, sessions, resources, basically to help people or to help .NET devs understand what they can do with the skills that they already have to build on Microsoft Graph for Microsoft 365, building apps for work and school, and also for the personal use, right? Because you can also use Graph with your Hotmail and Outlook account. So many folks aren't aware of that too. So we will be doing a lot of work around that coming March 1.
Yep.
Other than that, going towards the end of the month, another release of CLI for Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Graph Developer Proxy. So we're wrapping work around that too, preparing for a release. So they'll be a part of next week already, because February is a short month. So next week is the last full week of the month that we can do some of that. So you can expect us maybe talking some more around that. So a busy week. How about you, Vesa?
I'm actually finally taking a few days off. I didn't have time off during holiday. Now with certain exceptions, because of course I will be helping with the community call and all of that regardless. So it's just realities of the role and life at the moment. We'll try to figure it out. But yeah, it's been a while since I've taken any actual time off, which is good. So spending time with the kids.
So do you pinky swear not to take the laptop with you?
Unfortunately, that's not an option.
There you go.
I'd love to be able to do that, but whenever the actual summer holiday break starts, then that's full offline, and we'll figure it out.
You're gone.
Yeah, a few days as a quick break. It's a bit of a different thing. So, but of course, minimizing the amount of things what you're doing as much as possible. So. But and then SPFX beta comes out actually a week after that, and all of that stuff. So a lot of cool stuff in the pipeline. But it's just a lot of stuff.
Very cool.
Anyway, thank you, Mustafa. Good to catch up. We'll continue our work with the ECS preparations and all of that. And that's going to be huge. And that was 21st to 24th of May.
22nd to 24th.
22nd to 24th, yes. 3 days, and one of those 3 days is a pre.
Yeah, first one is a pre-conf, and then 2 days of regular sessions and keynotes.
Yeah. And it's really convenient location, and the airport in Düsseldorf is like 10 minutes away from the hotel and downtown, so it's really easy travel. But other than that, I guess that's it for now. Thank you, Mustafa, for joining. Really good discussion.
Have a good day.
Excellent.
Have a good weekend.
Cheers.
Bye.
Excellent. Thank you, Mustafa. Really good to catch up as well, and actually really interesting discussion. It's good to catch up on the Azure side of the house as well, and then capture those thought points. And actually that always opens up additional ideas like, oh, that's interesting. I need to have a look on that and that and that. And which really is an excellent example of why diversity and matters. So you have alternative perspectives and discussion points. You meet people who are actually come from a different background, and then you're like, oh, actually that's a great idea, and start combining those things. So if only we would have more time, right? So have a bit more time on spending on Azure side of the house. So I remember Azure getting announced when I was already working at Microsoft as a Windows Azure. So that's been a while back.
And it was like my first impression was like, what is it, like Windows? And
it's Windows in the cloud.
Would explain in a really weird way, like, so Windows, but it's in the cloud, but it's not Windows, but it's Windows. It's like,
yes, that's true.
So
and it wasn't IIS; it was platform as a service. There was no IIS offering from a day one, so that was missing completely. And then, of course, that was one of the reasons historically it's always really easy to be smart on these things, but that was one of the reasons why AWS, for example, got a head start, because for conceptually it's so much easier to understand. You take a computer, you virtualize that, you put it as a VM in a cloud, and then you start running the services there with the cost savings. But I remember even internally, I guess that's not confidential anymore, there was actually messaging related on this, and our stance internally was, no, that's not the real cost-efficient way of doing things, which is correct, because the platform as a service is much more cost-efficient.
Yeah, it's technically correct, but it's so ahead of its time.
Exactly. It was so ahead of the times, and that's unfortunately quite often the case with Microsoft. We've seen this with even tablets back in whatever time we had the tablets, and then nobody cared until iPads came. So it's just interesting. Well, technically Apple had the watch on thing before that, but still it's kind of a we tend to go a bit too ahead of the curve, and then people don't get it, and somebody comes with a easily approachable thing, and it's like, yeah, now I get it. So anyway, we had some other.
Yeah, but it's the same thing with AI too. Like AI is hot now, like ChatGPT. But it's like, we've been doing this already for a long time. Yeah, but
yes.
Now it's approachable, right?
That's the thing. Find the right storyline, make it approachable and understandable for the audience. And now it was the first time when it's understandable for the broader audience, and then it explodes. The fastest growing service for 100 million registered users in the history of computer science, so which is crazy. But it is interesting. Anyway, so articles.
Yes.
Articles.
What do we have this week in the news?
Articles. In the news. We'll start with Jeff Teper, of course. He's the father of SharePoint and leads a lot of the other Microsoft teams nowadays, and OneDrive and many other things as well. And he's the president in Microsoft, and organization is being called Collaborative Apps and Platforms, and that's basically a lot of Viva services and teams and all of that stuff. But he's basically inviting everybody to the Microsoft 365 conference, which is happening in Las Vegas on May 2 to 4th. So 3 days. There's a pre-day, which is workshops, and then there's there's multiple pre-days and a post-day as well. But those 2 to 4th are the actual conference days, and there's a lot of cool sessions in the pipeline. I think we'll get the Microsoft sessions in the catalog pretty soon. But if you're looking into having a location to in-person things, join there. It is a nice location. So not that I don't like Las Vegas as a city, but the location where the conference is nice. So for me, Las Vegas is so artificial.
Yeah, it is. Oh.
Anyway.
Been there, done that. Yeah.
Exactly. So this one was actually interesting as well, from Seth Patton.
Yammer is evolving to Microsoft Viva Engage with new experiences rolling out today. So on February 13th, we announced a change of Yammer name brand into Microsoft Viva Engage. And that was already, in making for a longer time.
That was in the air for a long time, yes.
Yeah, but now it's official.
Who's surprised?
Viva Engage is the new brand, trying to, bring all of that under the employee experience umbrella. So yeah, from now on, it's what's the expression? The Yammer is dead, long live Viva Engage. Or
the
long live the king.
Service previously known as Yammer. So
yes.
But cool. That provides some clarity on things for sure, which is great. Absolutely, 100%. Now we also had an announcement from Bill Bear. We kind of debated on should we actually cover this, but this is actually a good reminder. There's a lot of customers who still have on-premises deployments, on-premises in this case would mean SharePoint, because their SharePoint and Exchange are still in on-prem, but there isn't that many services from Microsoft 365 which are in on-prem. And SharePoint on-prem is actually evolving. So as part of this, there's going to be a new SharePoint Workflow Manager released for the SharePoint 26. Well, it's compatible for 2013 even. Interesting, because the end of life for 2013 is happening within 2 months. Anyway, but it's basically replacing the workflow engine because there's no Power Automate available, of course, in on-premises, and this is replacing that as a new option and a future-proven option. Interesting. It's a good reminder that on-premises does exist still. Yes, absolutely.
Definitely.
Now, we also had this one. What's the hackathon?
Exactly. On March 1, so March 1 through March 15, we'll be running a virtual hackathon for Microsoft Graph and .NET. We've got prizes to win. You will be able to learn as a .NET dev, what can you do with the Microsoft Graph? What are the scenarios, options, what is available? What kind of cool apps you can build for work, for school, but also personal apps, because you can use Graph with your personal accounts too. So if you're interested, join us for a hack March 1 through March 15.
Really, really cool. I love the video, by the way. Well done, good production value, and all of that's related on this one. Really, really cool. Microsoft Teams apps are now generally available in Microsoft 365 Android apps. So basically, Microsoft Teams is now apps are getting extended to Outlook and Office, which is a great new surface and opportunities for the partners. So you can access the same application in those services as well. And now also, of course, the Android and mobile will gradually start supporting that as well. So there's an announcement that the Android app is now supporting that. It's really, really cool to get a consistent experience across desktop and mobile. Awesome stuff. There was a connector update. A lot of connectors. A lot of connectors.
Starting the year of 2023 with 11 new verified connectors and 18 updates. So we are working, keep adding new connectors, basically allowing people who build on Power Automate, Power Platform, do more by more easily connect to different data sources, services that are available on internet, and basically tying them into solutions that they build. So it's always exciting to see, like, what new abilities do we get?
Yep, absolutely. Awesome stuff. And it's the speed of these connectors getting done is just really, really cool. Now, related on updates and all of that, there is a new version of the Microsoft Teams Toolkit. So let me actually open up this window first. And this toolkit is basically the easiest way to build your Microsoft Teams solutions inside of Visual Studio Code. Yes, that's the right way of saying that. So really good tooling, and there's a new version out, which is version 4.2.3, which was out in February 17th, and previous version 10 days ago. A lot of updates, fixes, improvements, all of that available in that release. So take a look, have a look on, and of course, if you find something, please report that forward. Now, Martin, links style. Okay, thank you. First,
managing and applying purview retention labels using code. And in this article, he goes into a programmatic way to apply labels, retention labels, like how you would do it with PowerShell CLI, Graph API, basically showing the different ways how you can automate it. Because if you need to manage that at scale, last thing you want to do is go through the files one by one. So here, with this info, you can do it at scale more easily.
Yep, really, really cool. Martin also had another blog post, so he's been busy this week, which is around working Microsoft Teams PowerShell in Azure automation. So how can you automate stuff in Microsoft Teams using the Azure automation, using them scripts, and really, really cool operations. And that's not just PowerShell. What's that? What is that?
It's calling CLI from Microsoft 365 from PowerShell. So Azure Cloud Shell, I believe, is the location, and from there, how you can run all of that.
Yeah, really, really cool. Thank you, Martin.
So it's doing with managed identity and all that. So basically, giving you end-to-end source for running that.
I love the end-to-end storylines, always better than the classic example, which we've touched so many times. When the sample starts, as you have the token, then you'll do thesis. Where do I get the token? Where's the token? Anyway, Marcus Miller from Avanade had a new blog post as well. Use Teams Toolkit and Visual Studio C# to create Teams tab using Microsoft Craft Toolkit. So really, really cool. Here the difference, just to call it out, it's not Visual Studio Code. It's the actual Visual Studio IDE, which has its own Teams Toolkit version, which is evolving as well. So a lot of familiar. First time when I read the article, I was like, oh, that looks familiar in a good and a bad way. So because you used to spend time in the Visual Studio a lot.
I know they've done this in VS Code. It's not. It's VS.
Exactly. Yeah. Anyway, really awesome stuff. Thank you, Marcus, for covering this one. Thank you for all of the awesome blog posts that you keep on pushing as well. Now,
this week on the 365 Message Center show, right? So this is a weekly show, I believe.
Yeah. Yes.
Where Daryl and Daniel go through what are the latest announcements in the Microsoft 365 Message Center. There's a lot of M's in there. Basically, that place where we at Microsoft communicate what's coming to tenants at Microsoft 365.
Yep.
And basically, they go through the latest announcement, what's coming, and trying to explain that with additional info. So always
in an understandable language.
Cool. Yeah. It's not like our language isn't not understandable.
No,
but with additional info.
Anyway. Yes. One thing what I want to call out as something what people have been asking for a long time is the Microsoft Viva Connection available in iPad. So basically a tablet experience for the Microsoft Viva Connection and Viva Home. So that's coming as well. Now, there was also an article from Rebecca Jackson related on Viva Engage, the artist formerly known as Yammer. Oh, that's where I got it. So that's why I was thinking, where did I?
Primed already, subliminally.
Exactly. Thank you, Rebecca, on that one. Because I used the term in the previous article. Anyway, so basically a summary on what's happening and the announcement and references on those announcements and what are the new features and capabilities. And actually, I think this provides more clarity because it's been a bit unclear. Yammer and Viva Engage, what's the reference? And it's like, okay, fine. It's the same thing. So let's be super clear. Wow, that's good. It's Yammer time. It's at the same time, it's always sad to rename things because now we get rid of the Yammer term. But it had its life a long time. Yes. So, and we love renaming stuff. We are Microsoft. PnP React Controls Part 13 Icon Picker from Sudharsan K. See it this way. But great blog post again. He has a series on basically explaining the different PnP SPFX controls, which increase your productivity as you're building anything for SharePoint framework. So really, really cool, again, with live demos and all of that and how to start using them. Then there was an article from Leon Armstrong.
Yes, effortlessly collaborate with document annotation now in Microsoft Syntax. So again, another evolution, another new feature set in Syntax with more and more abilities to help you automate working with documents.
Yeah, it's amazing how fast we keep on rolling stuff across the services, and I'm not surprised that we keep on hearing that. Stop, slow down, slow down.
Well,
There's too much.
That's really the cool thing is in a cloud, like doing the basics, like that takes time. But once you have it, you can iterate.
Then you
really
can start rolling things. Exactly. Exactly. That's true. But that also means a different mindset for the customers and end users because you need to be ready on, oh, what's that? And so don't freak out. You need to be ready on, okay, so there's something new again rolling out. Now, Xiao Ferreira, it's in my head. Yes. Xiao Ferreira, how to save and deploy SharePoint page templates using PnP PowerShell. So this is actually a cool story related on the page templates are actually site specific, which is a bit of a weird thing, but you can actually use PnP PowerShell to replicate them across the sites as needed. So if you create a template in one location, you can just use PnP PowerShell to copy, and that's it. Really, really easy way of getting the templates then available across the sites.
Yes.
Would be nice to have it in the product, of course, as well, but still. April had a new video
about changes to Dataverse for Teams templates. So if you work with Dataverse and Teams, this is definitely one video you should watch. It's 6.5 minutes, so it's not too long, and it's a great way to get up to date on what's new and changed.
Absolutely. Paolo had a new episode on his Piatek Tech Bytes, inviting users via Microsoft Graph. Really quite typical scenario, actually, what the applications could be doing. So, and managing the user invitations and making sure that that's working properly. with a live demo as well, and the length 6 minutes. This is actually really good. So step-by-step guidance on how to make things happen. Shane Young had a new video related on AI with Flow. A lot of AI stuff in Power Automate integration this week, or across the whatever reason. There's ChatGPT.
It's hot. Yeah, and describe it and design it with Power Automate, right? So in this video, you'll learn how to use the describe it and design it function or feature in Power Automate.
Yep. How does that work?
If you're interested what you can do with that, check out the video.
Absolutely. And that's, by the way, still in preview, just to call that one out. And then Giuliano De Luca had also a video how to integrate ChatGPT and Power Platform. So OpenAI, Power Apps, and Power Automate, and really, really cool video as well. So a lot of great ideas then for the AI integration scenarios in general. Now, we already went through what's happening this week. I guess it's time to close for the Friday. I still have a few meetings in my pipeline.
I don't have any meetings.
And it's sunny even in your location. That's weird.
Yes, it is. It is weekend time. Just in time for the weekend. So long and thanks for all the fish.
Exactly. I'm still waiting. There was one small joke. There's the classic meme related on spring is coming from 1st of May, March. It's spring, and then there's the I come from Finland. Hucking. I need to find that for the notes. Because 1st of March is certainly not spring in Finland yet. So, please. But anyway. It is what it is. But thanks everybody for watching. Hashtag PnP Weekly in Twitter if you're there. I will try to catch up on things also in other social media platforms. If you like this, let us know. If you have ideas for the visitors, let us know. All input is more than welcome. But that's it for now. Have a great week, and we'll be back.
See ya.
Cheers.